You and I both heard this phrase a million times. The fortune is in the follow up. And it's more than just a catchy phrase that the entrepreneurial community likes to bat around or that you would find on a coffee mug sitting on any entrepreneur's desk. The truth is, it's more than words, it's truth. On average, consumers need to be wooed. And that wooing is way longer than you likely are doing, and it's costing you big bucks. The fortune is in the follow-up because it takes 7 to 20 touch points before someone has made an assertion that you're trustworthy, that you know what you're doing, that you're likable and credible, and I feel safe investing in your programs and services. And that's why in our programs, we spend so much time getting clear and building a roadmap that moves somebody from curious to paid client. It isn't the tactic that is the problem. It's true that follow-up works, but you have to have a system of follow-up if you want predictable and repeatable results. And so today on Amplify Your Marketing Message, I want to talk about the steps, the actual brass tacks of how to nurture a prospect and 5 specific ways that you can execute that follow-up that will create better results. We just wrapped up one of our favorite programs in our business. It's called the 30-day client enrollment lead sprint. And for the group that went through, I heard one universal comment in every piece of client feedback we received. I've got to do way more follow-up. I have low-hanging fruit in my business I was not pursuing because I was trying to find a new lead instead of following up with one I already had. And that by simply following some of the day-to-day tactics that we share in that program, people made cash. Lots of it. And so we know it works. And that's the other thing that is so ironic. You have heard this expression a million times and twice on Sunday because it works. And yet we don't work what works. We're distracted by trying to find something that doesn't work and then contort ourselves into, I can make it work. And then when it doesn't, we get distracted, frustrated, and go find another shiny object. Stop it. This is an episode you save. This is an episode you re-listen to. And this is one where you get down to business because your next client is, chances are, already in your ecosystem and possibly even already received an offer. And I'm just going to share with you my perspective for a minute before I jump into these 5 things I'm going to tell you how to do, what to do, and when to do them. I have created a lot of sales success in my career, both as an employee, as a business owner, and as a mentor to other business owners, building client growth consistently. That's true. But even no matter how many sales courses I've taken or various times I've applied myself, we all struggle with consistency in follow-up. We all lose out great opportunities to support new clients because of our lack of follow-up. And here's the numbers. A great salesperson, and I believe I'm on that high end of great, we would still only close 25 to 35% of our clients the first offer we make. That means that the vast majority don't say yes, and the vast majority of money is still there because the person who asked for an offer has 2 choices. You've heard this here before on Amplify Your Marketing Message, but if you're new, this one's a good one. Make sure you think about this every day. Every time you make an offer, it's a decision-making moment. People can decide to keep their problem or they can solve their problem. And if the offer doesn't reach a conclusion, which is, I'm going to solve the problem, there is a known truth at the table. I've chosen to keep it. And that decision might be revisited. And anytime it's revisited, I want to be at the table to invite them towards my solution. And that only happens if I stay in the follow-up. And I've had many, many clients come to us. Sometimes it's only a few weeks, and sometimes it is years later, and saying, I'm now ready. And I've been watching from the sidelines, and I've been nurtured, and I still really trust you. I know I was going to hire you. Today's the day we're going. And I'm like, giddy up, let's do this. So here is where we start. The first thing is that momentum must be initiated by you intentionally inviting people to take a step. So the first thing to do is to always plan and make a next step before we lose the opportunity to do that. And I'm suggesting here, the simplest way to do that is book the next step, book the next call, book the next experience in the moment where the offer is made, because it gives you another touch point that's already built in, and you have a reason to keep the dialogue happening. And so when we are running our day-to-day businesses, I run in a CRM. I coach people to create and run successful businesses by using a CRM. And if you're thinking, what the hell? You just used an acronym. Back it up, Christine. A customer relationship management is a CRM tool. It is a simple way to track and measure and move things by documenting a sequence of steps. And so in CRM, our system that we will use and train and support other clients in, is always to document what is your next step. What will you do intentionally, and what have you booked and committed with the person who is your lead? And that next step should fall into an assessment of urgency. And this is just your opinion. There's no right or wrong answer here. I like to keep things simple. I think of this as green light, amber light, red light, or slow, middle, fast. And depending on urgency, we should take that step more quickly or more slowly based on our assessment of what's gone on to date. So the first way to keep nurturing happening is to already have a committed next step. Book the meeting in the meeting. Make sure you know what the purpose is of that next step so that you have a clear, easy way to engage and you get agreement to keep the conversation going. Okay, that's really simple step number one. Step number two is to send a recap of your current conversation. So if you've made an offer, absolutely you should be recapping what it is. And that means you should lead this with an assessment. I understood your goals to be X, Y, and Z. I understood your challenge to be the following. And your goal when you lead that way is to establish common ground, that I listened, because nobody gets hired if they don't listen. And I understand your perspective. It also gives you a moment to fine-tune if there is any misalignment in that initial assessment. Because if you don't assess correctly, you diminish the chances that this will get to yes. And we're people, so there's always a potential. We need to fine-tune it. But I will tell you, I have had people come back and hire me years later because they say, the follow-up assessment you had sent me blew me away. A conversation that I thought was pretty casual had a real clear understanding of my gap, a truthful respect for what the challenge is, and an invitation that I was able to pick up or defer as was right for me, the person on the receiving end. So you should recap. And when you recap, I always coach my clients. So this is a client experience that you're getting right here on this podcast. I say, recap the goals, the challenge, your recommendation, and why you believe this is smart money. And you state the investment and clear, simple, direct, next steps to move forward. So you're tag teaming the first piece and the second piece, and that's how momentum can be sped up. So take the time to not just wallow if you didn't get to yes and forget that an offer didn't go your way, but to really recognize we're in a not yet scenario and I can still be persuasive with a recap email. You should, best practice here, keep a copy of this in your CRM or in your files, because you always want to be able to go back to exactly what was talked about, exactly what was going on, because it gives you a place to step into another conversation saying, when we last spoke, the goals were X, the challenge was this. I want to know, have you solved the problem? Or has anything materially changed since then that we should revisit so that I can make a recommendation, because I really am wanting you to solve that. And I might be able to bring some of my expertise, my experience to the table to get you there faster with better support on the outcome. The third piece of intentional reach out that I would encourage you to always is to share a resource. This helps people know, first off, they're top of mind. Two, helps them at a safe distance while you're building trust. And if you are listening well and you give a highly valued resource, you raise your credibility in the eye of the potential buyer. So you should keep good notes in your CRM about what their challenges were so that you know what would be a great resource. And that resource can be anything. It could be an article, it could be an introduction, it could be an invitation to an event, it could be anything. You're building equity, trust, and credibility by showing how you show up as a service provider. Fourth suggestion I like to use is to create a sense of urgency. And I don't mean false urgency here. I'm not at all advocating for heavy-handed, scarcity-led urgency. I'm talking about urgency as an understanding of the cost and consequences for the buyer to delay not solving the problem. So for me, what this can often look like is when I'm in a conversation with somebody and I understand their goals and I understand their challenges and I understand the gains to be had by not forgetting to solve this or not prioritizing to solve this, I can communicate a sense of urgency. And that can be as simple as this. Let me give you an example. If for every client you bring into your business, you're selling an offer that is $3,000, for every month that you don't solve this, assuming you need one client per month to make your business goals, which is some people's reality, for every month you don't solve this, it costs you $3,000. So if any of our programs have an investment level less than $3,000, yes, while you're spending $2,000, you're gaining the net difference. So let me give you some math because I don't want you to get lost in this. So if a client comes to you and you sign them as a client, it gains $3,000 of income revenue. And our program, we'll talk about the current pricing of our client enrollment lead sprint, is $500. So you spend $500 to go for 30 days in a program with us where every day I'm going to help you find a lead. If you find a lead that leads to that client, you gain $3,000 for the cost of $500. The benefit is $2,500. You are $2,500 ahead because you invested $500. So that's a smart money decision. So I'll ask you in an offer, how many months do you want to delay having $2,500 in your pocket? 1 month? 2 months? Equal to 5,000? 3 months? Equal to 7,500? At what point does the break happen? It's crazy not to solve this. And the relative cost has such a huge gain, it's worth investing in because it's smart money. That creates urgency. understanding the lens in which the buyer has communicated. Not me saying artificially we'll never run this program again unless that is in fact true. But we run our lead sprint all the time. We run it multiple times a year, and you can step in at any time, but delaying stepping in costs you more than the investment to get started. So if you're thinking, holy Dinah, I need that, come find us, ChristineCampbellRappin.com. Check on the Work With Me tab, and you will find details and can enroll in our 30-day lead sprint. The next one will be detailed on the website. The fifth way that I want you to follow up and create engagement to build momentum with a prospect is to stay visible. That means you want to be intentionally engaging in their content, posting about your own content. You want to be sharing in a language that builds on the momentum of the most recent conversations. Because chances are, while they may not have got to yes, they're still watching. And I have a really good example of this in our own business that I'd like to share with you. So I have a potential client that I have known for now at least 2 years. I have made them 2 separate offers for our group program. They did not go forward with either, instead prioritizing investing in other training that they had been eyeing up. The training is great. It provided them more knowledge, but it still left a gap with the fact they are not selling that knowledge and not commercializing their skill set, which is what we help people specifically solve. I stayed visible. We're connected on social media. I'm celebrating and engaging on their life and what they're doing, and I stayed top of mind. As my business has evolved and as we've shared content, they are in the background. And I gave them permission to anytime step back into a conversation if they need support solving the gap I know still existed. 6 weeks ago, I got an email on the weekend. Christine, I've been really watching who you're playing with. I had a great experience in this course, and I have a truth to share. While I have learned more knowledge, I'm still not commercializing on my training. And so I want to step in to another conversation about your programs and services. Where do we start that conversation? Because now, while I am further along my timeline, I'm also unfortunately more cash strapped than I was last time we had the conversation. And I have a reason now to engage, and I've made them a proposal and a recommendation on how they could start. This came possible because I stayed visible. I was engaging, posting, curated content that still targeted their need. And I gave them a way to easily step back in and reignite a new conversation based on our current circumstances. So the reason you've been told the devil and the winning comes in the follow-up is because it's true. And I don't want you to wander in the wilderness anymore, because ineffective follow-up is what you probably do and see all over the place. Hey, I'm just following up. Hey, I'm wondering why you haven't responded. Hey, did this get lost in your inbox? All of those things I don't advocate for. I advocate for these 5. Book the call in the meeting so you always have a next step. Send a recap in showing goals, challenges that you listened and understood, and you have an opinion about what steps to take, and show them how. Share a resource that is specific to where they're at. Shows your trust and credibility. Create urgency by understanding what it costs them, not what it costs you. And 5th, stay visible. These are 5 simple steps that you can repeat in any sequence over and over again. And I will tell you, do not give up until somebody has said, yes, I've solved the problem to my satisfaction. It is heartbreaking when someone you know you could serve by somebody else because somebody else followed up, and I see it and on occasion, even experience it in our own business. And it always reminds me, that's another lesson that we cannot lose sight of the follow up. And what makes our follow up better, more effective, and more efficient is we're disciplined about using a CRM. We're disciplined about tracking what's going on because truthfully, once you reach a certain level, you no longer really need more leads. You need to work the leads you have better. And that's what we do, and that's what we help people do. I hope this has been super effective. Save this episode. Come back to this episode. And anytime you feel lost and wondering, how do I do that? Remember this. One of the best pieces of advice I was given by a sales mentor of mine many years ago was a belief that people can solve the problem or keep the problem. And until they've solved it to their satisfaction, they're always a potential client for you to serve. Don't lose hope. Stay the course. That's where you'll make big impact and solve somebody's problem. Be back here next week. We'll see you on Amplify Your Marketing Message next week.